Quiet on set.
Roll camera.
Sound speed.
Mark, please. And action.
Welcome back to Students in Focus. I'm Katie, student producer at the Utah Education Network. In this show, we focus on the incredible creativity from students across the state of Utah. This week, we have 2 documentaries, an event highlight, and an industry spotlight with audio engineer Nathan Efstation from PBS Utah. Up first is San Juan Theater by Tayden and Kyle, students from the Voices of the West program at Spy Hop Productions. They chose to highlight a local business in their community.
So the movie theater was established in 1949, so it's been around for quite a while. The first person to own the movie theater was LeRae Alexander, and that's Karen Slavin's dad. I think it's important to have a theater in a small town because it's able to provide a sense of entertainment, which is important, and in small towns there's not a lot of that. And also it provides a place for people to go on dates, and I started working here when I was 15, so it allows to give the kids a job opportunity.
I go to the movies because it's just something to do, and it's really fun to go with friends, and it's just something to get out of the house.
So the busiest time when we get the most people is usually from 6:45 to 7, but if it's not during the concessions time, which is from 6:30 to 7 before the movie starts, and you're staying throughout the movie, it usually hits around 8 or 8:15, and usually a bunch of people come in to get popcorn. So the system for premieres is we have extra people working, and then we have specific tickets we hand out. And with those tickets, so we rip them in half, and one goes in a bucket and you keep the other one. And we have bouncers down in the bottom who make sure you're seated where you're supposed to be and no one's saving too many seats. And then it's just a regular movie where you come to the line. Usually we tell you to go sit down first, and then you come up to concessions. You get your concessions, whatever you want, and then you can go sit back down. And then before we start the movie, we'll take the tickets that you put in the bucket, and we'll go down and we will pick out different tickets and give out prizes. So we try to premiere almost every Marvel movie because, again, those are really popular. And we're premiering Jurassic World tonight. But if it's just a movie that everyone's excited for, we try to premiere those.
I think it's important to see a movie on opening night because it extends your experience. I think that going to the movie theaters, other than streaming on a laptop, you have a bigger screen. You get to focus on a lot more stuff on the screen, and it just makes the intense moments seem more intense, and you get to share the excitement with a bunch of other people who are also wanting to see the movie. And also you can share the moments with your friends, or if you guys are both wanting to watch the movie, then you can obviously talk about different scenes and things that are happening, especially if you know details of movies before, if it's a series.
My favorite premiere was probably either Spider-Man Homecoming, which came out on the 4th of July, if I remember correctly. And so a lot of my friends were here, and I love the 4th of July, it's my favorite holiday, and then it's Spider-Man, so it's pretty good. And so all my friends were here and made some good memories. Or the second Quiet Place we premiered, and it was on the night of my graduation. And so most of my graduating class was here, and we all got to come and make good memories.
The best experience I had was going to an opening night for Spider-Man No Way Home because there were just so many people that were so passionate in watching the movie because they were cheering, and then there were just a bunch of moments that they didn't expect.
So we work with big film corporations, so we get the movies from them, and so we have to usually have a set amount of time we have them. So sometimes it's a bit difficult because they want us to keep it for 3 weeks or longer. And as a smaller theater, that's hard because we don't have enough people coming by the 3rd week, and so we're losing money and they're losing money. And so we have to try and work that through with them, and for the most part they're really helpful, but sometimes we have to keep them for 3 weeks. And then the movies will, the companies will set the price for the movie for the tickets, and usually we make only about 50 cents each off of those tickets, while they make about 75. Something that could be improved at the theater is like the heating system. I'm always cold here, so bring a blanket for sure.
The only things that I don't like about it are the seating arrangements with like it being squeaky and uncomfortable. I don't necessarily like it when people cheer too much. I don't know, it's just something very cringy.
Some positive things about working at the theater and to like about it. So if you work here, you actually get into movies free, which is pretty cool. But I like the popcorn. I think we make really good popcorn. Whenever I go out of town, it's just not as good. And we also have very good soda because it's an older machine. But like, again, the atmosphere is just really like, it's really calming and fun. And it just is I don't know, I always been put in a good mood when I'm here. I have a lot of memories here, but one of my favorites is, I don't know, so Ann Hawkins is the owner. And so you come to work and you do everything, you set everything up, but once you're done, she'll just talk to you and like, she's a very cool person and you can talk to her about literally anything and she just makes it such a good time to work here. So I started working here when I was 15. So it was one of the only places that was hiring, but I've worked here since and I'm 19 now. And I like to work here just because it's like, it's a very fun environment and it's a pretty easy job and she's very flexible and willing to work with you.
I'm interested in a career path that makes a lot of money.
I thought I wanted to do like strictly documentary journalism type stuff.
In the film world, I'd like to be either an editor or a DP.
Two will have to be closer. Okay. A little closer.
Thinking about going into like production.
I think I want to do cinematography now.
Right now I'm really looking to go into post-production because it's something I enjoy a lot more than being on set.
Maybe working more with sound, assistant directing, script supervising.
Action!
I chose Salt Lake Community College because I heard that their program was more advanced and more hands-on than any of the other schools around.
We're teaching people how to grab C-stands and set them up and put flags on them, use cameras. From day one, they're using post-production equipment and cameras and a lot of hands-on. So we got a Blackmagic cinema camera, we got a Red Epic and a Red Scarlet camera with complete lens packages, matte boxes and the whole filters and everything. So our students learn how to build cameras and learn how to do it properly, and they're able to go do that on an actual film set.
I've had a great experience so far. I've had enough support from all of my fellow students in groups making projects. I feel like I learn a lot from the teachers. I feel like I could probably leave with the associates and go on a movie set and be prepared.
Great, man. Just we put more blood in there. I think we can do it again. No, we can totally do it. I think that we can run this again. Okay, one more time.
We're looking for student-produced films and videos to feature on TV. Learn more at uen.org/studentsinfocus to have your media considered for an upcoming episode of Students in Focus. Up next is a documentary about Clayton Long, who is a long-term resident of Blanding, Utah. Students Evan, Tatum, and Kinsey, who are participants of the Voices of the West program at Spy Hop, created this video.
So one incident that happened that made me want to learn English was I was taken out of the reservation, not in a boarding school, but a different school, where nobody spoke Navajo, just me. And one day I needed a friend because I was homesick, I was by myself, and And I noticed that there was a child, that not a Navajo, but an Anglo boy, and he gravitated to me, and we kind of hung around each other, got to know each other. And I noticed that he wore the same t-shirt every day, never changed clothes. His hair was always messy, and but he was a friend to me, so I said, you know, well, it's nice to have a friend. We didn't really speak a lot to each other, but we just hung around at the recess and stuff. And one day, people were calling him names, this little boy, even though they were the same people. And I remember hearing the word white trash to this boy. And I thought, what's a white trash? I'm leading up to the idea of how I got involved in producing books and CDs and things like that, and all based on culture. So what I was saying is that when I was young, I was basically put in a place where I could not speak the language or the culture, not because I wanted to, it's because somebody said no to it. And it was a whole society, it was the mainstream society was doing it to all Native folks in the whole United States, not just Navajos. So, but I remember being forced to learn English, but at the same time resisting, and at the same time trying to figure out why do I want to learn another language? Until I had that incident with the little boy, that he was being called names and he was called white trash. And I found out that white trash means someone that doesn't know how to speak their own language or culture very well, or read or write their own language very well. So they were kind of told, they were separated from others. So he didn't have a friend. I didn't have a friend. So we became friends. But when I heard that, then I began to say, I don't want to be called white trash. So I began to say, maybe I better learn how to speak English. So I slowly learned how to speak English. And luckily everybody around me kind of was listening to it. So being in that situation, I was able to pick it up. And then that kind of started a little dream of mine that I someday would like to speak the language fully. Well, come to find out, my school district, as a principal, as a teacher in San Juan School District, and made my way up to the district office to become a director, there was a center to produce Navajo books, Navajo, anything Navajo, for teachers, for language teachers. And because of that, I thought, I'm proficient, so I can help. So the books that we created were all bilingual, okay? That big one that's right in the middle is kind of pinkish color. You can see that, just open it up, you'll notice that it's written both in English and Navajo. That's how the books were all created, bilingual. And did a lot of stories, did a lot of small books, big books, didn't matter. Sometimes we did video clips like you're doing here, right? So it was coyote stories. We acted it out and everything, so that's cool. So that's how everything came about. It's really good. I love it so much. We finished the Book of Mormon. We are now working on the Doctrine and Covenants for a great price. In 2 more years, those 2 books will be finished, right? I'm doing it. So I love what I do. I love language, I love culture, I love all those things. I do video clips for communities. I train folks how to learn about the stories, learn from the stories, use the story. You can even produce it in your own book. You can create your own book, The church asked me to become a full-time translator. And now you see my office here. That's what I do every day now. The dream, the prayers, all the things I ever wanted is all here now.
In the Field with UEN TV connects your K-12 and higher education students with our producers for socially distanced workshops, presentations, and portfolio or reel reviews. Contact resources at uen.org for more information.
For our final piece, we have an industry spotlight with Nathan Efstation, who is currently working as an audio engineer at PBS Utah. He has many years of experience in the music and sound industry with over 57 credits of dialogue editing and more. Most recently, he was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Editing at the Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards for his work on the Netflix series Beef.
I think what really draws me to audio and music and production, both audio and music, is just the clarity. I think having dialogue or having sound effects or music that comes across as so clear that everyone is able to follow that and get on the same page with the story and how the sound is helping to create that story and tell that story. And that to me is really magic, the magic of audio. And I also think, I believe strongly that one of the great joys of doing audio for film and television is I think it's kind of when it all comes alive. You know, you have the picture, you do the coloring, and everything really goes together ultimately. But I think there's a magic that happens when the sound brings people together and you're sort of submerged in that sound. And I think that's when the story comes alive and it starts to become something else. So an audio engineer, there's lots of different facets to that work. It's about recording sound, it's about working with sound, and as a broadcast audio engineer, it's about fine-tuning audio and preparing audio to be broadcast. So yeah, I studied music for a really long time. I went to the University of Denver, and then I went to film school at the University of Austin, Texas at Austin. And while doing the film program, I got really fascinated with audio and how audio is processed and used in making films and television. And I think some of the music and sound work that I was interested sort of really lend itself to that kind of work. So, having worked in Austin after graduation, I had worked on some bigger projects, you know, feature films, doing editorial, sound editorial. And when I went to Los Angeles, it was kind of a surprise to me that being out there, in some ways you kind of have to start fresh. My skill level was a bit beyond some of the work that I was able to get. And I think my experience in Los Angeles was, you know, you kind of have to start from the ground floor and build that trust with people and those relationships with people and gradually build to where people know the kind of skill set that you have and come back to you. So I think by doing, you know, really good work, trying to do your best, that, you know, people recognize that. And so you build the community of people that you work with and that know you. And I think that's kind of how Los Angeles works, at least my experience. So when you're on set, there's the boom recordist who has the boom mic that might be recording, say, 3 different people. That one mic is capturing all those 3 different people. And then each person is also wearing a lav microphone. So the job of the dialogue editor is to mix those different microphones so that you can't perceive that the sound is changing from one person to another. It's also about cleaning the dialogue. You know, there's a lot of times on set that, you know, maybe a dog is barking or a siren goes by or an airplane, and maybe that was a really great take that everybody loves, but because it's got a plane in it, you might not want to use it. We have the tools to get rid of the airplane or the dog barking and to really make the dialogue shine So ultimately, the dialogue editor is about making the dialogue clear so that everybody understands it, and then it sounds pristine. In Los Angeles, I really specialized in audio editorial. And I did dialogue editorial and sound effects, and I really liked doing those things. I was also wanting to branch out and get into live television, audio, as well as more field recording. And I was also in Los Angeles kind of for peak television, so there's a lot of production going on. I think with COVID, and then after the strikes happened, there was a real slowdown with some of the work, and it was a good time for me to make a change. And having lived all over, I was excited to experience a new atmosphere and get out of the city a little bit. One of the things that I've heard a lot, and I think it's true, that an audience will put up with picture being maybe not so great, or off, but they won't do that so much with sound. If the sound is bad, people tend to turn away. So, as an audio engineer, I'll give you a rundown of my day. So today I came in and we did some audio editorial on a television show that we have, that we're working on. And then I stepped over to where we were doing some live taping of some television spots. So we're mixing that live to tape. And then say maybe this afternoon I'll go out into the field and record an interview, which is common. And that's a pretty big day, And at the same time we have multiple mixes in post right now. So always kind of looking for the next, maybe I could do a couple of things on a mix that I'm working on today as well to get that closer to completion, yeah. Well, here at PBS Utah, we have a lot of projects happening. We're currently, the show I'm working on here is for This Is Utah. So we're working on mixing that and editing the sound for that. We also have a 30-minute Arts Elevated that goes over the Governor's Arts Award. We have a documentary that we're working on mixing, and we're going to be mixing the music for that, and we're also field recording for more shows that are coming up. So my goals as an audio engineer going forward are about exploring sound and finding new ways to incorporate sound into storytelling that maybe haven't been done before, or that are done in more unique ways. I think that's one of the great things about audio, is that there's always new things to learn. It's always growing. So you're constantly learning things, and I think there's a lot more that can be done with audio to, really enhance storytelling. And that's, I think, one of my big goals. So my advice to students getting into or wanting to get into film and television production, and especially audio, I think there's a lot of skills to know, there's a lot of technical knowledge, but I think what anyone can do without gear or without the technical knowledge is just to begin to listen. And there's so many opportunities all around us to listen, and I think that is the journey that I've experienced, is to really become aware of the sound world that's around me and how that's being used in production. I think school is a great way to go. Doing film programs, I think, is a really great experience. And also finding maybe mentors or people that that are already working within the industry, and see what they're doing. I've yet to run across many people, especially in audio, that aren't willing to sit down with you and tell you the process of what they're doing. And I think if you show interest and you're really interested, people pick up on that and want to help you get to where you want to go.
Thanks again to Nathan for showing us around his workspace and teaching us the magic of sound design. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Students in Focus. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next episode. And you can check out past episodes at UEN Video. And hey, did I mention you can submit your project to be featured here on Students in Focus? See you later.